Welcome to Second Hometown USA. Lời nói đầu xin kính chúc quý vị luôn an lạc và thuận duyên trong cuộc sống. Xin chia sẻ đến quý vị là mình đi du lịch đến thành phố Seattle. Mình đi từ thành phố San Jose, tiểu bang California, bay đến thành phố Seattle. Mình chọn địa điểm này để đi du lịch mùa hè. Mình lên Google, mình search những điểm mình muốn đến, chỗ nào là miễn phí và chỗ nào là cần phải mua vé. Mình đi tự túc, dẫn gia đình đi kỳ nghỉ hè. Mình không đi theo tour. Mình đi theo tour thì mất thời gian, mình phải lệ thuộc giờ giấc. Còn mình đi tự túc như thế này thì mình có rất nhiều thời gian. Mình book những chỗ mà bán vé, mình book sẵn trên online hết, cũng như là mình book luôn cả cái chỗ bãi đậu xe, mình mướn xe, mình làm hết mọi thứ nó đầy đủ vậy. Khi mình đến địa điểm này chỉ theo ngày giờ thôi, mình đậu xe mình chỉ cần scan, mọi thứ nó nằm trong cái phone hết. Rồi mình đến những địa điểm mà bán vé đó, mình cũng mua sẵn, mình chỉ scan qua cái phone rồi là mình xuống. Bây giờ mình đi xuống chuyến tàu này, chạy vòng vòng dưới bến cảng, xem quang cảnh của thành phố Seattle cũng như xung quanh hai bên dải bờ biển. Chỗ này gọi là một cái vùng vịnh. Hôm nay thời tiết rất là trong xanh. Ông này là ông thuyền trưởng nè. Một chút xíu nữa ông lái tàu. Ông đang giới thiệu quang cảnh lịch sử về thành phố Seattle, cũng như ông làm thuyền trưởng chuyên chở du khách tham quan ở đây. Mời quý vị cùng theo dõi cho vui đoạn video này, cùng đi du lịch với gia đình chúng tôi tại thành phố Seattle. Nếu quý vị là lần đầu tiên đến thành phố Seattle thì đừng bỏ qua cái khu vực này nhé. Đây là bến tàu ngay trung tâm du lịch của thành phố Seattle. Mình đã bước xuống tàu xong rồi. Bây giờ tàu bắt đầu từ từ rời bến, sẽ chạy rất là xa nha, từ lúc khởi hành cho đến quay trở về cũng 1,5 tiếng đồng hồ. Xem quang cảnh rất là tuyệt đẹp. Hôm nay thời tiết rất là trong xanh, gió mát mẻ, không có nóng lắm mà cũng không có lạnh lắm, rất là mát mẻ. Quang cảnh nhìn rất là tuyệt đẹp, khu du lịch nổi tiếng của thành phố Seattle. Mời quý vị cùng chúng tôi tham quan nơi này trên một chuyến tàu đi vòng vòng, nhìn quang cảnh cho vui, thư giãn nha. Chân thành cảm ơn quý vị theo dõi và ủng hộ Second Hometown USA.
Up north neighbors. Okay, cool. So we got a little bit of international travelers and a lot from the U.S. How cool. Is this anyone's first time visiting Seattle, though? First time visitors to Seattle. All right, lots of hands. Awesome. Well, hopefully on our tour today, you'll learn a little bit about my favorite city, my hometown city, as I'm really excited on this beautiful sunny day to show it to you. We are on a boat, so I want to get you familiar with some nautical terms that I will use throughout the tour. When I say the bow of the boat, so if you're facing the wheelhouse, the bow of the boat is the front of the boat. Good way to remember that that's the bow is when you lean. We are going to make our way around the bay. The first building I want to point out, though, is just off our starboard side. So you see there which way that is. If you're looking at your neighbor, you're looking the wrong way. Everyone should be looking off to the right side. The Seattle Aquarium, Pier 59. Building, green trim, white windows. This is a very special building for our waterfront. This aquarium to get better. But unfortunately for her, she was having a hard time breathing. And we found out that Mishka actually had asthma. She was the first known case and diagnosed of older asthma. So we had to help Mishka out. And by doing so, we actually started a patent paper to help Mishka. So Mishka uses an inhaler to help her get medicine. Trainers taught her how to use it. Using drinks. She moves her nose on the inhaler. It's not beautiful for the medicine that she needs. And she's able to breathe. So Mishka is in there. We had a volunteer a few weeks ago from the aquarium, and she actually said that Mishka likes to smoke out of her face. Like her little inhaler, which I think is very sweet. Sea otters are definitely one animal that a lot of people like to see when they go to the aquarium. Also, people love to see the giant sea otters past their legs spread out very, very wide. And their tentacles. And on the aquarium, if you don't get a chance to go to it, you can still see a tank. If you're walking along the waterfront, you will be able to go under one of the tanks that is just built over the waterfront here. See lots of cameras out. Here are them. Where are they? Thank you. Oh my goodness, look at that. Port side. Thank you. Port. I love it. Port side. Wow. Do about 1,250 tactile hours on the planes in order to get trained for them. They're all captains or pilots of the U.S. Navy or Marine Corps. These planes, when you see them fly close like that, are sometimes as close as 18 inches. So these Blue Angels get very, very up close to each other, which is very, very cool. Looking off our starboard side, we have the Queen Elizabeth. We have tugboat right behind us, tugboat right off our starboard side, attached to the bunker bar here onto Elliott Bay. This little rocky area right here, this is what a Pacific Northwest beach looks like. So not your white sand, blue water beaches, but it's very beautiful nonetheless. This beach is part of Myrtle Edwards Park. Myrtle Edwards was a councilwoman in the 1950s to 60s, and she was a huge advocate for keeping Seattle green. She didn't want Seattleites to live in a concrete jungle, so she wanted to make sure there was lots of green spaces and parks for residents to enjoy. And it's because of her that no matter where you are in Seattle, within 10 minutes walking distance, you can be in a green space or a park. With all this green space and all these parks, we actually have more dogs than kids in Seattle. The ratio is about 1.7 to 1. Lots of furry friends running around the city, which is very fun. Lots of green spaces for them to enjoy in. Now if we look up from this beach here at Myrtle Edwards, gaze on up the skyline, we see this hill. This hill has red and white cell phone towers on it. This is Queen Anne.
Queen
Anne here in Seattle. Now Queen Anne used to be called Eden Hill, and that was before the Great Seattle Fire in the late 1800s. That fire burnt down most of the city, and not a lot of homes were built up on that hill. Eden getting its name from the Garden of Eden, because it was a reminder of that. But after the city burnt down, homes started to get built on this hill in an architecture style known as Queen Anne style architecture. So homes were being built up there, and it was kind of the rumor or the new name for it, calling it Queen Anne Hill with all these beautiful homes up there. So that name just kind of stuck. This became Queen Anne. Queen Anne is home to 2 fictional doctors. Do I have any Grey's Anatomy fans on board? Always wondered too, couple of hands. Yeah, Dr. Meredith Grey lives up on that hill in the first 2 seasons of Grey's Anatomy, and they used an actual home. They used a real person's home for the shots of Meredith Grey's house, so you can go visit it. Unfortunately, Meredith Grey does not live there, so just keep that in mind if you go take a look at it. Another fictional doctor, Dr. Fraser Crane from the show Frasier. Frasier being the spin-off of Cheers. Now that show
quay mình thôi à, không có đưa lên.
When you hear the
Quay
mountains out,
vòng
you know it's
vàng
going to be a
này.
great day here in Seattle, because that means skies are blue, and you're going to get a glimpse of the beautiful mountains. Now off our starboard side, I said I would mention that two-way color system on vessels. That old carrier out there is going to be headed to our grain terminal. So that has black on the top, red on the bottom. I can tell that one is empty. If you look back to our grain terminal, you can see that the very top of the color that they use on this floor, the red, is the only one showing. So there's that much vessel underneath that boat currently with the solution in the grain terminal. There's the Olympic Mountain Range, a national park also being out there, the Olympic National Park. The tallest peak out there is just over 7,000 feet. Rainier sits at 14,400, so the tallest one's over there is 7,000. It's not quite as tall as Rainier. That's Mount Olympus, that's the tallest one. But the Olympic Mountain Range has, on the other side of it, the home temperate rainforest. And that rainforest is one of the wettest places on Earth. It is very, very rainy over there. It rains about 14 to 17 feet every year on that side of the mountain. The home temperate rainforest, because of this, is this very wet, mossy area. They actually did a couple studies out there, and they found that it is one of the quietest places on Earth. On the other side of the Olympics is a town that got a 1,000% tourism boom after Stephanie Meyer wrote some books about it and some movies were produced, and that is Twilight. I myself am a huge fan of Twilight. That was all based in Forks, Washington, and that's because it's very wet over there, very gray, so it's a great place for vampires to go home. Now in front of the Olympic Mountain Range, sorry, I mentioned that there's 14 to 17 feet of rain over on the other side. Seattle gets quite the rep that we are a very wet and rainy city. This is kind of our little secret, what you're experiencing here today. That it actually can be very beautiful blue skies. Here in Seattle, we only get about 3 feet of rain every year. Those mountains block a lot of that rain that's coming off the Pacific Ocean that we would get if they weren't there. Seattle gets a lot of rep for being a rainy city, but meteorologists count rain by the days, and for it to be a day of rain, all it has to do is sprinkle for a few minutes. So in Seattle, we do get a lot of the time some little sprinkle at 2, 3 in the morning, and that counts as a full day of rain when meteorologists are tracking it. So days of rain, yes, we have quite a bit, but you'll often find that it could have been raining this morning, and we wouldn't have even known because blue skies beautiful day. In front of the Olympics, you'll see that landmass. That is Bainbridge Island. A lot closer to us. Bainbridge Island is a bedroom community here in Seattle. There's lots going on here. But first, to our starboard side, we see our dry docks. Bigger Shipyards is home to our dry docks. Dry docks are used, as you can see, these boats are out of the water. It's used to get boats out of the water to repair them, convert them, just do some maintenance, or just kind of check up on the boat, see how they're doing. The vessel you're on today goes into dry dock about once every 2 years, just to make sure the hull, everything looks great. The current vessel on the right side, with the red on it, the number 10, with the white on top, that's the number 10 Polar Star. That is a part of the U.S. Coast Guard fleet of icebreakers. And that one right there is the most powerful non-nuclear icebreaker. It can break up to 20 feet of ice. And this vessel gets sent down to the Antarctic, goes down south to break up ice in order for shipping routes, shipping canals to be able to go through. Very interesting thing about this boat, it has a water and fuel tank in the bow and in the stern. So when it's coming up to a 20-foot ice sheet, they'll push all the water and fuel to the stern of the boat, which kind of makes it tip up a little bit on itself. And then when they're next to the ice sheet, they'll push all the water and fuel back to the front, and that'll drop it down onto the ice. And the bottom of that boat kind of works like an axe. So it'll cut the ice right down and be able to break it up. The one in the middle with the white tarp on top of it is the USS Gabrielle Gifford. And that boat is a trimaran, meaning it has 3 points of contact on the water. And based on the material it's made of, it's actually really hard to pick up on radar. It either doesn't come up at all, or it comes up as a much smaller vessel than it actually is. And it can go highway speeds in just 14 feet of water. So it's a very powerful, very fast ship. And then we got 2 vessels to the left that actually aren't in the dry dock, but they're right in the water next to it, still getting some work done. I'll talk about the number 100. the USS Kidd. That is named after Real Admiral Isaac Kidd. He was a naval officer who actually died in the attacks in Pearl Harbor. So when they asked his widow if they could name a boat after him, she said yes, but only if they fly the Jolly Roger flag, which is the pirate flag. Unfortunately, saw all the heads turn. It's not up right now. It's only up when it's underway, but it is a massive flag that they fly. So the classic pirate skull and crossed swords, and that's because Isaac Kidd was nicknamed Captain Kidd when he was young and through the ranks, which is a well-known and loved fictional pirate. So pirates were very important to him.
Did you know what his favorite pirate joke was?
Tell us, Moose Lips.
What did the pirate say when he got his wooden leg stuck in a freezer?
What'd he say?
Arr, shiver me timbers. True story.
Thank you, Moose Lips. So that's the dry docks, and they're kind of interesting how they work. They're hollow on the sides. They're these gray U-shaped structures. If you look up your right shoulder, you can see one currently without a vessel in it. It has the number 12 on the left side, vigilant on the right. It's a gray U-shaped structure, hollow on the sides, so they'll fill the walls with water, which pushes it down into, or makes it go down into the water, the boat, and then they'll push all the water out of the dry dock, and that allows the boat to go into the air.
Với cái giống như xà lan này vậy ha.
HR to go through, so they just randomly generated 300 of them and then went and looked from there. So you got to be pretty lucky to become a longshoreman. You work your way up to this position. You can see this ladder though off to the right side, kind of behind on the back leg of the giraffe structure. That's how they get up to their office, to the glass box. So when they were conducting those interviews for those longshoreman positions, they actually took the 2 final applicants up those stairs and did the interview from the glass box to make sure that they all felt all right. They work short hours because they can suffer from things like vertigo, nausea, because they are looking through the glass box down through their 2 feet, playing what I think is probably the hardest game of Tetris anyone could ever play, by taking these containers and stocking them on container ships. yourself. Check out some of our local coffee shops we got here. The beautiful thing is that we have so many local coffee shops that you can ask any Seattleite